Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, From Pilot to Performance, Making AI Impact in Government. Today's webinar is sponsored by Polymorphic and produced by SmartBrief. My name is Mackenzie Puttisi with SmartBrief, a future B2B company, and I'm so happy to be your moderator for this webinar today. Many government AI initiatives start strong and then stall. Often the issue isn't ambition or buy-in, but the limitations of point solutions that weren't designed to scale across services, departments, or channels. On today's webinar, we'll examine why platform-based approaches are becoming essential for delivering modern digital government services. As you can tell, today's going to be an incredibly valuable session, but before our presenters join me on stage, I want to give you a quick overview of the audience console, and then we'll get them on out here with us. This way you'll get the most out of today's session. Now, first comes first, quick introductions are always in order. I've seen some highs, hellos filtering in already in the chat tab, but if you're just joining us, in the upper right-hand side of your console, you're gonna see a chat tab there. This is the perfect place to, of course, say a quick hi, hello, hola, bonjour, aloha, whatever greeting you'd like to give us here in the chat and say hello to your community joining on this session. But this is also the perfect place to let us know how the information is landing, if you have any personal experiences, anecdotes, comments that you want to leave for the speakers or anyone else here on the call as we go through this information. We'd love to see your response, how this is resonating with you. The chat tab is also the perfect place to let us know if you have any technical issues during today's session. Hopefully that doesn't happen, of course, but if it does, a quick browser refresh usually does fix things, maybe slides, audio, video not loading or syncing. But if you're having any persistent issues, let us know in the chat tab. Myself and Arena, our webinar coordinator, who's running things smoothly in the background, will be to help. Things you can do if you hover over your view, you're on mobile or have limited bandwidth, you can toggle that on and that could help as well. Welcome, Yolanda. We've got Canada in the house. Hey there, Paul. Hey there, Gang One. Awesome. So great to see so many of you popping up. Again, keep feeling free to chat there. We love it. Now, we do have questions aside from the chat tab. So there's two tabs there, chat, Q&A. Third one is the docs. If you have questions for our expert presenters today, please put them in the Q&A. We are going to be holding some time later in this session for the live Q&A, and then you can pick the brains of these experts in action. And one of the most valuable things about coming on these live sessions, so feel free to do that, and we'll do as much Q&A as possible with the time allowed. Finally, our final stop on the audience tour, the docs tab. In there, you're going to find a few supporting and follow-up materials from today's conversation, a couple articles linked in there. You've got the new playbook for effortless resident services, as well as the local government guide to evaluating AI tools. And if you love what you see here today from Polymorphic, there's a link to request a demo, and you can try it out for yourself, get your hands dirty, understand how it would work. And that's always my favorite way to learn, so definitely check that out. And final bit of fun, we have a $250 qualify for the prize, as well as I think we are ready. We've got, again, two fantastic presenters here joining us. We've got Mo Khan, Strategic AI Advisor for Polymorphic, as well as Connor McInnes, who's leading the IT security and innovations for the town of Apex. And with that, Mo, Connor, welcome to the stage.
Hello. Hey, hi everyone. How are we doing? Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today. I'll kick things off here on our end. I'm Mo with Polymorphic. I've been here a little over a year now, really advising the Southeast area from North Carolina at this point. From customer perspective, I think we're almost close, like a showcase how to go from a pilot to actual implementation. But I'll pass it to Connor and introduce himself really quick.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Connor McInnes. I work for the town of Apex, North Carolina. I've been here for about 7-8 months now. But before that, I was working in other local governments in the Triangle area, working on innovative projects. So that's kind of been my focus for a while now. I've been working with Polymorphic for a little while now with the town of Apex, and I've been leading our implementation of a couple of Polymorphic tools. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about how we can do more than just pilots.
Awesome. With that being said, I'll move to the next slide here. The biggest things we want you to take away from this presentation is really how do you go from testing it, why pilots are important, but why it's also important to set um, exit criteria around those pilots, and then taking that and expand that into actual implementations. And then also from the point solution systems versus platforms, and why having systems and thinking about the full end-to-end journey is really important and crucial as you're exploring different solutions for your organization. So with that being said, I think we have a poll here. So we got poll going live right now. So where are you in your AI journey? So we'd love to hear from you guys and seeing where you guys are currently at as we start collecting this. Awesome. Looks like we're just in the beginning, experimenting. Cool. Got some got it. Cool. Looks like we got a good number of folks experimenting, um, which makes sense at this stage, right? So we had a couple of years of AI rolling out. We're finally getting past the policies and the roadblocks, and now we're starting to get our feet wet a little bit here. Love that. We got a good amount of folks also running some pilots. So this would be good for you guys to understand like how another agency like you guys went from pilot to rollout to getting adoption, and some of those sticking points within pilots, and like how we can get past that. Awesome. All right. Cool. So so over here we want to kind of discuss why AI pilots kind of get stuck, and what are some good practices before rolling out any type of AI project. In the last couple of years, going from ICMA to NACO to any other conferences, you'll see a lot of vendors selling very similar products, or looks overlapping. Everyone all of a sudden has a chatbot or some type of AI solution, and they're asking you to test it out. They're asking you to pilot. They're giving it away. But as you know, through the history of GovTech, and with all these new solutions, you want to be careful how you go about rolling out pilots. One of the biggest challenges that I've seen in my decade in GovTech is a department or leadership will roll out a solution, and then it sits on the shelf. Right, adoption is poor. It didn't roll out smoothly. We don't get folks to start using it. So we want to be careful how when we're looking at solutions, how we get our feet wet, or how we start testing that out, making sure we're creating controlled environments, especially when it comes to AI, right? And we want to make sure we have internal stakeholders, maybe a small group of testers from representatives from different departments, because we want to make sure that we're not just looking from one lens, but multiple different lenses. And then lastly, we want to make sure that when you're looking at a solution, you're looking to solve a problem versus buying solutions to find problems, right? You want to identify some of those high level, or at least pinpoint one or two pain points that you guys want to solve with the solution you guys are looking at. I'll stop there and ask Connor, from Apex, what's your experience there? How are you guys, how did you guys look at rolling out some of the AI projects that you guys are doing?
Yeah, a lot of our initial exploration, like our pilot level stuff, kind of got started because someone saw something cool and they said, "Oh, maybe I should do that," and that is fine, but it keeps running into the same issue where it does something cool or it does something helpful, but it only does it for that person at that time. Um, so that's kind of where a lot of these experiments and a lot of these pilots have stalled for us. Is one example was a drafting tool that I had built for our communications team to help prepare stuff for social media platforms. each platform has different rules, they have different styles, and so I was making a tool that would help, kind of curate that kind of stuff so that the content, uses the emojis on the platforms that like you having emojis and don't use it on the ones that don't, and that kind of stuff. And it solved that issue, and it was pretty good. And as soon as I showed it to some stakeholders, their very first question was, "Oh, can it read my other stuff? Can it read my, can it read my Teams message or whatever?" Like, oh, well, no, I guess it can't, because I only was trying to solve or implement this one cool thing. So that's kind of where we keep running into walls, is not having the connectivity needed to interact with other systems or to really handle the amount of context that humans are handling whenever we sit down at our computers or whenever we get to the office.
Got it. Was there a moment when you realized, like, as an agency, when you're testing out or rolling out one of these solutions, when you're like, all right, you know what, now we can go bring in other departments, or we can expand this. It's time to go wider with this.
I think that moment for us has come when people start asking questions about their work and how their work can be different. If, for example, we had a couple of folks from the finance department come talk to us, and they said, "Hey, can you adapt this thing that you're working on to answer questions about our very complex budgeting process?" And so once people started to think about the stuff that we were working on in the context of their work, rather than just going, "Oh, that's cool for you," that was kind of when we realized that we needed to be ready to scale, these solutions, because people were genuinely interested in the technology and interested in the solution for more than just novelty's sake.
Yeah. There's we've seen that across a lot of the organization that we're working with is you at first you might get a little resistant, but then as you start testing it out, rolling it in, and then especially inviting folks and showcasing, like, hey, what we're doing. I think, like, for you guys do this really well, where you do internal presentations with other stakeholders and showcase what you're working on from an IT perspective. When we've seen that roll out in other agencies, then you'll have different questions pop up, or different
Mm.
solution challenges. One another advice that we often give is, when you're rolling out pilots, especially if you're starting off from the top level, or starting off from, like, say, from the IT department, and then you're communicating with these other departments, is to ask, like, where are those bottlenecks? Where are you guys seeing those day-to-day challenges? And what we're identifying is, there's those silos, they're real, right? Department everyday work kind of keeps everyone heads down. But what, like, a case for, like, Orange County, Florida, where their planning department was so tied down on from just answering calls from builders all day, that despite even having a front desk and piloting different solutions, they have 3 full-time planners just answering those calls all day as well, and permits are delayed by 30 to 60 days. Like, I'm building a home right now. If I had to wait that long for a permit, I don't know if I could afford it at the end, right? So tying into solutions like Polymorphic, they're able to now answer those questions and get those planners back out there. But IT wasn't didn't have that clarity or view in what was happening kind of behind the scenes of that department. You could look at it from a data perspective, but they didn't know what was really happening until we sat down with each department, or they sat down with each department, better yet, and started asking those departments, hey, where are the bottlenecks? And they identified it was 3 full-time planners that are just answering the phones, that are not getting permits out, because they needed to keep tapping into different multiple systems to answer those questions. Cool. Moving on to this next slide. So when well, I think there was a study done by MIT that indicated around 95% of enterprise AI pilots fail to scale to production, or deliver measurable ROI, despite the massive investment from these agencies or organizations, and they stall into this pilot purgatory. And I think some of the things, like you mentioned, it's like we solve this one thing, but then it's like, hey, can you do this other thing? And then all of a sudden it starts spiraling out. But I'll stop here. Like, what are some other experiences that you guys had when it comes to where pilots kind of fall short, or better yet, point solutions, long term solutions. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that one of the big issues that we run into is um, getting people to adopt some single point solution, right? So if we have a pain point or some problem, it's really hard, even if we have built or have bought or found a solution for it. It's hard to get people to change their day-to-day life and their workflow um, just for a single fix, because a lot of these pain points are individual things, but they're not whole day problems. And so if we come and say, hey, we've fixed this thing that's irritating for 30 minutes out of your day, but you have to go to this new web page and you have to click on this new thing and you have to upload your new file. People just, even if it's a fix, even if it helps, people are just not interested in taking the extra time to adapt or taking the mental capacity to focus on picking up a new thing. And so that's a big issue that we've seen with adopting a feature or a pilot that we think is fixing a problem is that it's not deeply connected to the other places where people do their work, and it's not deeply connected to the data that people are looking at and dealing with every day. And even then, if it's a flashy, cool new thing, they're just not interested in that extra little bit of energy that it takes to get used to something new. And so I think it's just that a lot of these pilots that we've been messing with for the past several years, a lot of them are not making any further progress, and they're not getting to the point to scale because not enough people have gotten that compelling argument to say, hey, here's why you should use this. Here's why you should try this out, because it's going to make your life easier. And that's kind of what all pilots are all about, is making that argument. And I think if your pilot doesn't have that level of connectivity with the other stuff that you use, it's going to be even harder to make the compelling argument.
Yeah, because if residents coming to you, they're coming to you for a reason, right? They need an answer, or they need to do a task. But that answer and that task doesn't usually live in that one place. And we start off on the website, right? We'll go on the website. We'll go look through the website to answer a couple of questions, and then we can't find it through the keyword search bar, right? Then what do we do naturally? We pick up the phone and we start calling in, and we start asking that question. So but internally, when we answer that call, and for you guys have Ask Apex, a 311 department, where we can, at least residents can have some type of place to go to when they have a question. But what happens then? Then you tap into different solutions to answer those questions, right? Because now you got to go on maybe CityWorks or Q Alerts or the Tyler products of the world and try to get that answer, or MillSoft, right, for utility billing. Or you got to go on GIS and validate that person is a resident of Apex, right? All these information it lives in so many different systems and solutions. This is why point solutions are often, like you mentioned, they're that deep connectivity between all the different solutions. They can't answer from one place. That's why we look at it when we're looking at from a platform kind of perspective. And I'll go to the next slide here. It's the understanding that because government and GovTech has been out for some time now, it's a natural instance of having like 5 different CRMs and from different departments to different departments. And now a resident doesn't know the wiser, right? Resident doesn't know that if I call in, I have to get bounced around to the right department because that department is the only one that has access to that information or that knowledge base. Whereas with the platform level product or solution, you're able to tie into all these different solutions. You're able to create a central source of truth. You're able to create, even now go further just getting information, but also even starting that end-to-end experience taking like reporting a pothole for example, right? It's not just simply picking up the phone and calling and reporting it, but internally, what are they doing? Now they're putting it in CityWorks and creating that ticket, and then they need to validate does that need to be a work order? Do we need to actually dispatch a team out? And then we got to monitor that. Do we handle that task, right? So there's multiple different steps in the way a small operation like reporting a pothole takes place. Having a platform that can do that end-to-end experience and track all that and communicate back to the residents, giving them a status update through the process is important, because now you can actually you get that full experience from the beginning to the end, versus a point solution like a form builder on the website. Then you submit that, then you get an email, then you got to route that email to the right department. Oh, it turns out it was the wrong department, so they'll send it to someone else. It disappeared. And now the residents calling in saying, what happened to that pothole that I reported? So that's kind of the approach that we take when it comes to having a platform that does that end-to-end experience, giving both insight for the resident and the staff member. And I think I'll add additionally that also gives the staff an additional way of delivering consistent answers. No matter what answer the resident will get, that's the same consistent answer the staff can provide, no matter where the resident comes in from. Anything to add there, Connor?
No, I think you kind of covered a lot of what I think the difference really is in that. Yeah, it's all about how well connected your department or your organization can become, instead of how many tools you can give to each person. And if you only need one platform, or you only need two platforms to connect an entire organization, that's going to put you in a lot better position than having the same capabilities but spread across 50 different individual tools that people have to keep track of.
Yeah, and I think just another thing that came to mind is the deep analytics that you can extract from having a singular platform versus having to pull different data sets and putting in a Power BI to get the full story. Where if it lives in a singular place, you can really get a clear story from the beginning, and then you get actionable insight. Is it data that we need to go to our website and clean the resources? Is it adding content to the website? Is it where are people struggling on the website? Having that deep analytics with now AI that can actually contextualize and create a message or summarize that those analytics. I think that's pretty powerful, and where AI really shines is being able to contextualize some of those data points. Cool. Moving on. So we kind of we kind of covered covered a lot of this in the last slide. On So I guess where we could spend a few minutes here is talking to talk to us about what you guys are currently working with, right? When we started with just the chatbot and the AI voice, but now we're doing a kind of a revamp of the CRM and the interactions from end to end. Can you share a couple of like what you guys are going through right now when it comes to the platform or building that platform?
Yeah, we started our kind of process with AI chat to get things going. We figured that was kind of the best way to get started, in that people are already pretty familiar with the system, and we can really easily get a lot of good information out of the logs, out of the interactions that we're able to see and record. So we got started with that, and we've been rolling that out. And we kind of have taken a different approach than I think a lot of folks do, in that we've started to build up our CRM kind of capacity before we've finished the kind of first phase, and we've been working towards building out that whole platform from a fundamental level up, and getting that ability for Ask Apex to interact with the chat interfaces, and then moving into developing workflows and kind of putting all those pieces together with the CRM as the fundamental kind of platform.
Got it. I know you guys explored a couple of different CRMs in the past, which got either turned down or adoption was poor. Um, and if you can remember, like, what are some of the do you know what some of those changing points were for the other teams to say they are interested in this one compared to the other ones you guys presented?
Mm. Um, the most recent one, yeah, I think one of the biggest issues is that it was, past tools were just too hard to wrap your head around for staff to wrap their heads around on a day-to-day basis. If it was way overcomplicated or had too much data showed up at the very beginning, right when you log in and that kind of stuff, people were just getting they were already discouraged from learning how something works, and the staff were not interested in doing 6 months of training to get familiar with the system. They needed it to be more intuitive than that, because the platforms that they were using were not the point of the job. The point of the job was to talk with residents and get them the help they need. So I think that was really one of the main issues in past adoption attempts and efforts, was that people just came in and immediately were overwhelmed with information and had 500 different things trying to grab their attention, and just started to run into that kind of inertial barrier where people don't want to get started learning because it looks overwhelming. And yeah, that's been a big issue in adoption in a lot of different projects, but especially for the Ask Apex staff.
Yeah, I'm looking at a comment here, and I think it kind of resonates. Like Ben commented, we have killed many pilots because these AI tools are not tightly integrated into enterprise e-discovery or litigation hold tools. Yeah, I think that does absolutely like resonate with everything we're sharing around having these point solutions that don't do that end-to-end experience, right? Whereas exploring different tools or solutions, mapping it out and saying, hey, what does that experience look like? And going back to even your point with CRM, I mean, even so from internally, CRMs they can be daunting, right? Like Salesforce. I know you have experience with Salesforce. And and from a sales perspective, a guy that's been using CRM for the last 2 decades, it's still pretty daunting, right? It's a pretty big beast. So there are different CRMs that can be very challenging and very scary to use. And I think we, when we're designing solutions, we really try to be cognizant of that end user and how to make it as simple as possible, but also making it consistent both from the internal and external. I'll move on to the slide here for sake of time, and pass it back to you here. I know you've been talking for a minute now, but let's talk a little bit about Apex.
Yeah. Town of Apex. It's a small kind of suburban town in the Triangle area. So if folks are familiar, the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill Triangle is a huge research and kind of technology hub in North Carolina. Everyone around here likes to say that we're smack in the middle between the mountains and the beach, but we don't get the benefits of being close to either. But yeah, Apex is a town of about 70,000 folks. Very diverse population. We have 4 or 5 major kind of primary languages that more than 3 or 4% of the population are speaking as their primary language on a day-to-day basis, and that by itself makes for a very challenging kind of resident interaction experience, because we don't want to necessarily force everyone to speak one of their second or third preferred languages. For the town of Apex as a government, we've had a lot of growth over the last 15 years as a population and as an organization, but the organization hasn't necessarily scaled up as quickly as the population has, and so our IT department has been growing like crazy, but it's still not nearly the same scale as kind of a more mature municipality might have had if they had grown at a slower pace. But people still have the same high expectations for service. People don't want to hear an excuse for why they don't get their trash picked up on time or why they don't get the information they need. They just need the stuff done. So that's what that's kind of what we're working with as a organization. So we started our kind of major AI initiative from our council members. They said, hey, this is interesting technology. We want to be either at the forefront, if we can, of using these new technologies, but at the very least, we have to keep up. So that's what we were told from the top. Hey, make this a priority, and that's part of why I'm here at the town. That's how my position got started. The town council said make a person to focus on this stuff, and so from there, that's been my job, is to kind of bring other people in to using these technologies to improve our service delivery. And that's we've started with kind of the first step of any of these journeys, which is getting a chat interface up on a website so you can ask questions. And we've been working from there to build out better connectivity. And we've been working on both connecting more data to our existing interfaces, but also getting more processes hooked in so that you can do more stuff rather than just ask and answer questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm coming from New York City. When I moved down, I Googled safest place in America, and Cary, North Carolina came up. And then I learned about the beautiful town Apex, and we moved to Apex next. And I heard it's like kind of a right of way. If you're moving into North Carolina, you got to go through that that triangle area. But I mean, I was really surprised to see how diverse the community is. You guys have quite the diverse community over there, and definitely different languages. It's a beautiful town. If anyone comes to North Carolina, you got to stop by Apex. You mentioned so this initiative came from the top down. Tell us about rolling that out a little bit, right? So, we hear that a lot. We hear our mayor wants AI, our council is talking about AI. So that's why I'm here talking to you, Mo. we try to explore a little further than that and deeper. We don't want to just go, like I mentioned earlier, we don't want to just get it for the sake of the solution, not to just be the flashy tool, right? We want to understand pain, the problems, the challenges that we're trying to solve for, because without measurable cost of inaction, there's no real ROI, right? What is that real return on investment? We need to first identify those costs of inactions. Can you talk to me about how you take this council level or a top-down kind of level ask of you guys, and then take that to say, all right, how do we work with our departments, and how do we start testing out a solution and identifying those challenges that we're trying to solve for?
Yeah, the main thing that we've been focusing on is trying to understand the real problems that AI has the good potential to help solve. And so that started with a lot of kind of external research and trying to understand, based on the technology, what are the types of issues that AI is well positioned to address. And that's what we started by doing that. And then we've been going, each department individually and having time to just learn what they do, how they do it, and what the pain points are. And so with the external research behind us, we can kind of pinpoint, hey, this pain point that you've been talking about is something that has a lot of potential that AI might be able to help address. And this pain point is something that is a people process issue, and we can recommend that to a different group to help work on that. But that's been something that we've been trying to do exactly so that we don't run into the issue of just building or getting solutions to go find a problem. We're trying to identify as many of those problems as we can at the beginning so that we can prioritize and pick solutions based on how well they'll address our needs.
Absolutely. That kind of rolls into this next slide. the challenges, right? When I'll pass it to you on what are some of those what are some of the challenges that you guys were trying when like one tool is not enough, right? What are some of the challenges that you guys ran into or saw?
Yeah. Some of our biggest challenges were really down to how well we can enable a single person to get work done. Our departments are still not necessarily as big as averages would suggest, and so people are being asked to just get more work done, and that means that people have to trim the fat in as many areas as they can to be able to get the important stuff done. And we've been seeing that stuff falls through the cracks more than we'd like, and especially when one department hands information to another, or when a ticket goes from one group to a different group. So stuff has been kind of slipping in those areas, and finding a good flow to get that kind of stuff done in a more consistent manner has been tough for a lot of groups. Because we're not able to all be speaking with the same language, or not be able to all be speaking with the same tool, essentially. And so that's been a big issue. And even in implementing a point solution, trying to put a Band-Aid over a single problem, we have trouble getting everyone involved, all the stakeholders, to recognize the extent to which that Band-Aid is a good solution. So being able to justify the money that we're going to spend on this product, or the time we're going to spend building out this solution, getting everyone on board with that investment is, I'm sure everyone's familiar with that kind of experience, but it's tough, and it doesn't get easier when you have to scale up your stuff.
Got it. I think we'll roll to the next slide here for sake of time. Can you talk to the crowd about how you guys approached getting started and rolling it out a little bit more granular? I know we kind of covered a little bit of this.
Yeah. So we started our chatbot deployment just on one department's pages. So we just picked the most heavily visited pages on the Parks and Rec webpage, their section of the website. So we focused on that department first, just to prove that the system was not lying to users, and it wasn't just making stuff up, and that it was able to actually answer the questions to a satisfactory kind of level. And so our next step there was to just expand to cover more departments. And we've continued picking low stakes situations where people aren't getting necessarily legal advice, right? So we didn't put it on the police department website or the legal department yet, because those pages kind of invite more complicated questions, and we didn't feel confident yet at the time putting it there. But that's how we got started. We rolled out to more departments, and then we started to implement specific workflows that are really common. So folks, want to report a pothole. So we wanted to make sure that there was a process in place in the context of chatting with an AI to report your pothole as well. Rather than just find out where to go to report the pothole, we want to be able to handle it all in one kind of flow. So those kinds of things were our next priority. And then from there, we wanted to start not just supplementing the existing functionality, because right now you can call Ask Apex and they can report a pothole for you. And so not only did we didn't just want to be not just supplementing that functionality and doing it in a different context. We wanted to be able to do more than just what people were providing. So that's where we are and are going to launch these things like the voice AI for after hours support, so that we can essentially double the amount of time that people can call Ask Apex and get help. Because even when the staff goes home, they'll be able to call someone, in this case an AI, and have the same experience and be able to report the pothole in the same way. So that's kind of how we've gotten started, is rolling out the stuff in a safe way, in a way that everyone feels confident about, and then fleshing out new functionality that just didn't exist before.
Yeah, and you do a couple of things when you do it. That soft crawl, it has to be that crawl, walk, run kind of approach, and you make sure that you're getting buy-ins. You're making sure that the residents' experiences aren't being hindered by a solution that's meant to make their lives easier. Because now you have public pushback, right? So having this soft kind of rollout, putting those disclaimers out, hey, this is in testing, or it could be wrong. Please verify this information, and then starting incrementally adding onto that, or adding functionality onto that. Then also identifying those low hanging fruit, right? Like reporting a pothole. And then 24/7, right? After hours. You guys have a wonderful 311 team. You have Apex. You have wonderful staff members that are there to smile and to handle those calls, and deal with the folks that are maybe calling in not so happy, right? And giving that human interaction. But after hours, if it's 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. and I run over a pothole, or funny enough, a couple of weeks ago, I actually did hit a pothole in on I-40 over there by Apex. But
Oh, dang.
I don't think it was a pothole. It was actually a tow hitch that was in the middle of the road for
Oh,
some reason.
jeez.
It was
Well,
quite
if
the
it's
day.
on 40, that was NCDOT, so we got to go complain to them.
Fair enough. See, if I called in with the GIS integration, it would have told me actually.
There we go. Yeah.
That, right? So the system connected to your GIS would have told me that the right department or the right agency in this case, because that's another challenge. I mean, that can't we have a one city that I'm thinking about, Pensacola, Florida. 70% of so most folks move there. I don't know if you guys know, North Carolina is called the halfway point. You go to North Carolina, you stop in North Carolina, then you go to Florida, or you go to Florida and you come back halfway. But Pensacola seems to be the area that you go to wrap it up and kind of retire. So there's a certain level of expectation that the residents have from their government. So when the resident calls in, they expect to be taken care of. But 70% of the calls that come into them are not meant for them. They're meant for FDOT. They're meant for the county, right? So they're not. But yet the team over there wants to deliver a white glove customer service experience. So what do? They go on FDOT's website. They report that pothole on behalf of that resident. Now they're not answering the calls from other people that are calling in, and that's their 301 department. And then what happens? Well, those calls flow into the other departments. So you have this department that was dedicated to handle that customer service experience, but they're handling customer service experience for outside agencies. And now you're running back into problem one, where now you're calling the departments directly because there's the 301 folks are too busy answering calls that are not meant for them. So with an integrated platform, we're able to quickly identify the calls that are coming in and neutralize that caller to say, hey, actually NCDOT handles that. Let's connect you to the right agency the first time around, and not bounce you around a couple of times. Say, hey, wrong department, right? Moving on to the impact slide. This is going back to the points we made earlier about having a platform and being able to like contextualize this data. Why don't you walk us through some of those data points that we pulled here from Apex, and and then take that to like, how does this help you also getting those buy-ins and telling the story internally and expanding with the departments?
Yeah. So we this data we pulled that from our analytics as of like yesterday or something like that. And so we've been keeping an eye on this as we've rolled it out on that first department with Parks and Rec, and then as we've expanded to others. And it's stayed pretty consistent along, compared with the traffic that the website's getting. So we've seen some really good results out of the bot, and right now we're just talking with chat on like a quarter of our website. And so we've seen that 3/4 of our interactions are handled to a satisfactory degree where no one is yelling at the chat bot, or no one's saying, no, you didn't answer my question, here, and they don't have to try again to try to coax the right answer out. So we've gotten 3/4 of these conversations resolved to a satisfactory degree, which, if we had to handle all of those over the phone, would have taken us, to Ask Apex staff, extra multiple hours out of each day. And so we can reserve that time that the staff are taking for each call for those more complex cases, or for issues where someone wants to have more of a human interaction, or especially when there's kind of higher charged emotions that having a human touch is really important for. And we have several hundred of these from, I think January is when our main rollout was taken, or December is when our rollout started. So we're getting several of these every day. And we're not a huge city or anything, and so we're pretty stoked about the number of people that are coming to the website to try to get information and choosing to use these tools first, rather than wandering the website on their own trying to find information. So we're pretty stoked about what we've seen, and it's been speaking for itself in more and more, that staff, when they see this data coming back, that they're getting interested in rolling it out for their own departments, which has been great.
Yeah, that's a good way to roll into this next one. Like, what changed for staff, right? So what did that feel like when staff started coming to IT asking for more instead of resisting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing that I was most excited about was that I heard from one of the managers in Ask Apex that people were able to take breaks more confidently, because one or two calls fewer were coming in. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but one or two calls fewer in a day is something. And so people are able to take a break, go to the restroom, grab a bite to eat or something, without feeling like they're putting extra pressure on their coworkers. And so that's been great. And hopefully these questions are not necessarily the most complex or the most thought invoking kind of things. And so it's also more enjoyable work, because it can be challenging, and it can have some more effort required. So that's been really, really nice to see. And being able to have all this information in the same place. One thing that we're working on right now is having the ability to see the information from the work orders that they generate in the same context of reporting these cases. And so having the ability to access CityWorks through Polymorphic is really nice, because we can tell the staff at Ask Apex, hey, you don't have to go to CityWorks anymore just to answer, is my pothole being worked on? You can just look at it on the case itself, and it'll say this work order is in progress, or this one's finished. And so we can consolidate the number of things that people have to log into and switch between.
Yeah. I think there's that part right there is really important, right? Just being able to look at it from one place and go into it and say, hey, what's the status? We're rolling out like internal chatbot where you can say, hey, this customer's calling, what's the status of that permit that they just submitted? I think a couple other things like in the back that are happening that I think a lot of folks are going to be facing, or is currently facing, or will be facing, is the Tremble on-prem going on in cloud, right? And the workarounds. I took a trip in Georgia, stopped in I think 4 different municipalities where there's they've all said the same thing. We're on-prem, we're going on cloud. They have different types of workarounds with the forms, right? You have a Civic form, or you have Esri forms, or you have Laserfiche forms that are plugged into CityWorks. But once you migrate, those forms are going to break, right? So and also just the fact that they're connected to so many different workarounds to make it work, and now being able to centralize that all within like Polymorphic and build the forms and build the processes and allow residents to do that process through chat or through the voice, giving capacity back to your staff, right? I think that's what it is. The biggest thing is about giving capacity back to staff to handle those higher level tickets, right? The ones that people calling in that really need help, they're no longer being put on hold, but they're able to be supported through, maybe it's an application, maybe it's a event, maybe it's something you guys are offering, maybe social services, right? Where you can actually support that resident that's calling in now, and that needs support versus being on hold because someone's asking about the park hours again or the office hours or some general like FAQ questions. Yeah. What, you know, we kind of cover, I guess we kind of cover this too, right? Like that
Yeah.
initial struggle to get the departments to put to get it on, and now you have folks saying it's awesome. Where we love it, we want to test it out. You guys are getting more adoption, which is awesome to see. I think this is an area that a lot of agencies do struggle. They don't is when you have different departments kind of resisting rollout of solutions or using it. So I'm glad to see that you guys are making progress there. Anything to add there, or?
Um, I mean, it's just a good feeling to see to see the turnaround from folks when they get just past that critical threshold of like, I've seen enough examples of where it's useful, and now I understand it clicks now, and I understand how it'll work for me. So it's really cool to be able to see that kind of change coming around in folks. Yeah.
We'll go through a little fast. I know we have a couple minutes left here. So ultimately, like, the things that change for the residents now. Yeah, just to reiterate some of the points that we've covered. And I do want to circle back to like what you mentioned. You guys are pretty diverse. You guys have what was it, 4 to 5 different languages that primarily spoken in Apex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know from top of mind what are some of those languages?
Oh Lord, we have English, Spanish, Hindi, Chinese, like Mandarin, and German. I think are our top 5 primary languages, at least. And then most everyone who speaks any of the languages other than English speak English or Spanish as a secondary language.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if this was internal testing, but I was on your logs the other day and I saw Japanese.
Ooh.
That was pretty cool, and our system allows you to translate it for staff to see what's being said. And they were asking about Pleasant Park, is it? I believe Pleasant Park that you guys, the latest one has been open for a couple of months, but because it's in the parks department, a lot of the logs are coming around. Can we rent the facilities? Can we train there? Can we come out? And then also seeing it in Japanese, I thought that was pretty cool.
That's very
I,
cool.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, tracking request statuses without calling, right? Going back to that point of freeing up staff capacity on those pestering questions. I spoke to someone earlier today about like even reporting police reports and requesting that police report. If an accident happens on the weekend and you put a request in, now you don't have to call in on Monday saying what's the status of what's that report, and the police department having to say we just got in, like relax, let us process it, let's meet those SLAs. But now that frustrated resident that had to call the police is able to at least self-service and stay and get what they need, but on the time that it takes to process that application without calling in, being put on hold, and building on that frustration, right? So going back to like just tracking that request, faster responses, of course, and consistent messages across departments. I'll go to the next one on lessons learned. I think I'll open up and then I'll pass it to you, Connor. But where I remember when we first started working together, the CIO over there, Erica, called you guys. She said we put a team together called the AI Dream Team, and that's exactly what you guys are, right? You guys are that dream team making this happen, rolling this out, unsung heroes in the background, building a better way for residents to interact. And I think some of the big takeaways that we cover, or like we're looking at, is like thinking platform and not point solutions is often one that we're hearing a lot of. Plan for full service journey, the build incrementally, not all at once, and measure what matters. For you guys, I know you guys had that kind of roadmap, but like this is kind of what we want to do. And I remember Erica going on probably like a 10-minute monologue of how she sees this and how you guys discuss this internally and where do you guys want to see this build out. But I'll stop there. Does these lessons resonate? Was there more that you guys learned through this whole process?
I think these definitely do resonate. The one that I think we've focused on most is how we plan for the whole life cycle of our services, and that involves digging really much deeper into an individual problem than most kind of point solutions are used to. So we've been doing a lot of like interviews and going ahead with those conversations with other departments and trying to dig more deeply into not just what's the problem, but why is this part of your work important, and why is this part of your interaction with the town significant to you, so that we can do more than just solve your issue and make the issue go away, but we can also enhance the parts that are important.
Absolutely. I think as an organization wide, like the strategic plans and comprehensive plans of like having those top priorities of being more customer centric or customer facing, transparent, streamlining services, right? I think as teams look to even, well, after they already built that plan out or the roadmap, what's next and how we can now start building around what we're implementing here. I'll move forward. To the questions here. We'll skip that last slide. I think we have another poll that we're putting up. Is that right? Cool. Let's get that poll up.
Yes, so we've got that poll open just in the side there between the chat and the docs tab. Mo, Connor, great conversation so far. I've really enjoyed listening to you. And well, yeah, let's use the last little bit of time here to get some questions from the audience answered. That sounds good to you both. All right, so first question, and this is probably for you, Connor, is what's one thing you'd wish you had known before you started?
One thing before we started, I would like to have a better. I would have liked to know that residents are a lot more forgiving than the worst case scenario in my head. Folks, we were really concerned that like if there was a single bad interaction that they would never get back on and they would never interact again. But one of the first things I saw in our logs was someone's sent a message, and we can't see like who sends the messages if they go back and have a new conversation later. But they sent a message and said, when I think it was about like whether or not they could rent a particular facility, and they came back in a message and said, I asked previously about renting this facility, but can you tell me about pickleball tournament that we were having? And that was really encouraging, because I was kind of catastrophizing and saying, if someone has a bad experience, then they won't be able to rationalize ever using this again. And their previous log, it had answered the question sort of in a half kind of solution, because it didn't have up to date like scheduling information. But they came back and they asked the question again. I was like, okay, this is really great. So I think being able to be more confident about trying new things would have been really nice. But yeah, people are a lot more forgiving, especially when we're dealing with new technology, than I think we give people credit for.
Well, that's actually good to hear. I had another question here that was if you got any pushback from residents about interacting with AI instead of staff. So maybe they're really forgiving, but I'd be curious if you have any other sort of encounters around this.
I can't recall any so far. We've had several hundred interactions. They've all been on the web so far. So they've all been people on the website interacting with a chatbot. So there wasn't necessarily an expectation of chatting with a person at that time. But I haven't seen anything so far kind of with any kind of negative connotation to it about interacting with an AI. So fingers crossed that continues when we roll out the voice AI, because that'll kind of act as a first line of interaction with residents who are calling in. But at that point, being able to quickly transfer to one of the Ask Apex staff if it's during business hours is really what we're planning on doing for that.
I had a personal experience. I'd called like a credit card company, and it was a bot, voice bot, but it was I had a very positive experience. So I was like, oh, it like listened to me quickly, transferred me where I needed to go. It was way faster than one of those press button
Oh
menus,
yeah,
list all the options. I was like, if this is what AI is like, I'm happy. I'm happy to interact.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
phone trees are more or less they're more or less dead. No one likes waiting on a phone tree. 'Cause if you look at the time it takes about 60 to 90 seconds until you found the right prompt to get to the right person. But then as a resident, you don't even know who the right department is. So
right.
now you're guessing game of where to go.
That's a very good point, Mo. Like, yeah, sometimes the categories are like that doesn't really describe what I'm looking for.
It's close, but maybe it's this other. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, one more question here, Guy. Any AI examples for public involvement meetings?
Mm,
So we haven't incorporated public meetings just yet. There's a couple of instances where we're developing solutions, like we're a Laserfish developer now, where we can pull in those public meetings and you can start streamlining through that. Through the chat. The As for examples of public involvement meetings, if we're talking from that side, if we're talking about from the public perspective, I'll pass that question to Connor on, have you guys gotten any feedback from the public or working groups or working sessions? And I think I spoke to one of your deputy city managers that expressed interest in something like that. But where what are you guys? How are you guys going about that?
yeah, we've got we have the idea that one of our assistant city town managers wants to put in place to get a couple residents together, sort of like an advisory board, to help provide guidance and direction for some of these AI projects. But we haven't gotten that started yet, just because we're not fully sure what we would want to put to that board and that group to ask them. But we have seen a couple things, especially when we had a snowstorm come through the East Coast like a month ago. And a lot of our facilities closed down beyond what they normally do. And one of our town council meetings went virtual, and putting the information out there on the website. We had a couple questions from folks saying, hey, is town hall open for the meeting? So that's kind of the way that we've been using this AI to engage with the public on a meeting front. In group contexts, there's a lot to it for getting the information out if something changes, or if you want to push information out to folks and say, hey, we have this new thing that we want you guys to know about. Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Perfect. Mo, Connor, this has been great. I know we pushed a little bit past the hour, and I want to make sure we don't lose anyone. So let's wrap up the questions here. Any questions that we didn't get time for, Mo and Connor, we're going to pass those on. You guys can follow up after today's session and make sure everyone gets the information they're looking for. But Mo and Connor, any kind of final wrap up, comment, call to action you want to leave the audience with before I let you go?
Yeah, I think from my end, from the polymorphic end, we thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. We know, we know AI can be scary, or the ideas, but we're open to proof of concepts and building this out with you and exploring with you guys. Same thing like we did with Apex, where we're taking that crawl, walk kind of approach and saying, hey, where are things going to break? Where are things broken? What can we start helping bridge? I think that's the right approach when you think about it. But we're open to have that conversation and map that out for you. Just reach out.
Awesome. Connor, any last thoughts?
Not really. I mean, keep trying stuff out, keep learning. There's a crazy amount of change happening, and yeah, the more you understand the fundamentals, the easier it is to cut through all the hype and to get to actually applying this kind of stuff to solve problems.
I love that. Get in there and solve the problems. That's what we want to be at. So, well, Mo, Connor, thanks again. Until next time, I really appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye, guys.
Alrighty, everybody. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Last bits of housekeeping, and then we'll send you on your way. Again, thanks for all your questions. Thanks for answering those polls today. And of course, thanks for being here. So round of thanks to Polymorphic for making time to be here to make this possible, to both of our speakers, and of course, all of you in the audience there. We really appreciate you coming in, learning, asking great questions. So it's great to have that and great to have that interaction. With that, all we're going to do is give away the prize. We're opening up a really quick survey. So this is just for us here at Smart Brief to get a sense of what worked, what didn't. If we're moving in the right direction and getting your hot feedback about the webinar so that we can keep improving all the time. So that's going to be up in the upper right where the chat docs Q&A tab is. Otherwise, let's give this prize away. Our lucky winner of the $250 Amazon gift card is Matt Sanders from Ohio. So Matt, congratulations. We're going to reach out after the webinar, let you know how you can get that prize, and we'll get it over to you right away. And with that, that is essentially everything. Thank you all for being here one final time. If you want to check out any other webinars coming down the pipeline or on our calendar, you can check them out at events.smartbrief.com or this QR code. And with that, until our next webinar together, I'm wishing you all an absolutely fantastic rest of your days. Take care, everyone.